Hey, this is Matt. Once again, welcome back to another review. There's another paid request this time for Jonathan Lindsey. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, uh, commentaries, reactions, re-reviews, randomness, list rankings, out of blueness, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for episode 1 of The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. Now, this is a show that was on Netflix, I guess, only for 1 year, which is a prequel to this movie from 1982. Now, again, this is just for episode 1, and I would say this. It's a visual feat. Visually well done, beautiful to look at, the vast landscape of this world, showcasing the different tribes, the different creatures, the environment. At times the camera swirling through to really give the viewer the full stature of what this land is. I don't remember exactly how long it is before this film. Sigourney Weaver is the narrator. Which, okay. That girl right there is the narrator. There's definitely a lot of recognizable voices. Like the villains, the Skeksis, the vulture-looking creatures that you saw here. The bird-like creatures. Some of their voices, Jason Isaacs is the Emperor, who I remember as the bad guy you just love to hate, and Mel Gibson's the Patriot. He's been in other stuff too. I think he was in Event Horizon, among others. There's a scientist voiced by Mark Hamill. Although, granted, each time I heard his voice, I just thought of Joker. I'm like, he's the Joker. But Simon Pegg from Shaun of the Dead, he voices the Chamberlain, which is the Skeksis as that higher pitch voice. That's Simon Pegg. You have this one that I didn't like. I should have known because it's voiced by Aquafina, which I did not like her in Shang-Chi, and I'm sure she's a nice lady. I mean, Bobby Lee did an interview with her on his podcast, Tiger Belly. She seems like a nice lady, but just, I don't know if it's just the role she pits or how she showcases herself. Like, she voices a Skeksis, and what they do with her is that just a bunch of snot coming out of the nose. And it's like, what is this, man? Other folks of the Gelflings, which are these creatures here at the top, which were our heroes in the movie. And this, I guess there's about 7 tribes, 7 clans of Gelflings. And like one of them is a warrior type of clan. And I guess you could say that's our lead, Rian, voiced by Taron Egerton. I'm bad with names. He's the guy who's the star of the Teensman and the sequel, the 2 Teensman movies, which I like the Teensman films. His voice, I'm not sure if it fits. The thing with the Gelfling is that with their puppetry, the face doesn't have a lot of emotion in them, which I used used in 1982, but this is like 2019 or so. So you would think maybe the face could be worked down a little bit, but the puppetry is nicely done, I thought. And the puppetry on the Skeksis, and a lot of it being practical, and there's not a whole lot of CG. And then also the different designs of different creatures, like for example, transportation. They gotta go from one place to another, so they have these worm-like things that then roll themselves and act as a wheel, and each one acts at the wheel of this bigger contraption for transportation. I thought that was creative. And like I said, as a visual experience, very nicely done. And again, the different, what you call world building of the different clans. Like I mentioned, you have this sort of warrior, like their guards, and like our lead. has this girlfriend who's also a guard with him, and they bone, and you have this crazy sex scene. I don't know how they got away with this. No, they don't. No, but they do kiss, and then they fuck. But that's the unrated cut. If you get the unrated cut, you get the Gelfling sex. Bukkake style. Not really, but seriously, you get that does happen. But more seriously, you have this princess and her like upper echelon Gelflings. You have Gelflings that live underground, and it's kind of we have three main characters, each one from the guy from the Taron Egerton as Rian, his point of view. We have the princess point of view who wants to ask questions. What's up with the Skeksis? How and you have the underground where she gets a vision of the darkening, pretty much the dark crystal, this infection that's going to go over the land, and she needs to go up top to try to stop this. Though, I'll get more into the plot in a sec. The thing is, with a prequel, I'm not really big on prequels. Yes, there are prequels I can enjoy, but and this is not bad. I didn't mind this. I would say I like the movie more, but I didn't mind this. But with a prequel, you already know where it's going. Like, this leads up to this, and by this point, the Gelflings are pretty much gone, and it's up to these two species to unite as two as one. So you already know where it's going. So that doesn't really create a lot of suspense for me or intrigue for me because I already know what the end goal is. And that's kind of why I'm not really big on I prefer a sequel over a prequel. Like if this was a sequel that was like 1,000 years after the Dark Crystal, like there's been 1,000 years of harmony, and then you do something like this, I think that would be more intriguing, at least to me. Again, but because I already know the end goal, I'm like, well, by the end of this, pretty much all these Gelflings are dead. Or probably dead, unless this girl is be like they hid somewhere, and then this guy had to do it by himself, and then made you go, whoa, you guys just hid away, you chicken shits. This guy did it by himself with this girl with the wings, and then they're ready to bone after the end. I'm like, it just creates a lot of questions, as well as the Skeksis, which I believe this is some lie that they say, but the way the series is making it, that the Skeksis are aliens, and the Aughra, the old lady creature that could take her eyeball out in that movie. Let's see, is there a... I was seeing there's a picture of it in here. Not really. But if you've seen the film, the older creature that take her eyeball out, the Skeksis made her rotating things to look into the sky. And while she's doing that, the Skeksis, they're looking over the crystal. And the Gelflings, they worship them and their gods or whatever. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought the whole thing was that the Skeksis and the Mystics, they were one, and they split into two. But I would assume that happened so well. But I thought that happened when the crystal cracked. The crystal cracked, and then they split. But the Skeksis are here, and the crystal is still intact. Like, the crystal isn't cracked, isn't fractured. Because then the way this movie showcases it is the crystal cracked, and because the crystal cracked, the Skeksis and the Mystics are made. But in this, the crystal is still secure, at least at the beginning, but the Skeksis are still there. If the crystal's still intact, wouldn't it still be the other figure that was at the very end of this? And then the crystal cracks, and then they split? just look up some info. I don't think you ever see the other guys, the Mystics. I don't think you ever see these guys in it. Maybe I'm wrong. So that's what I mean, like, maybe I'm misunderstanding it. If I'm misunderstanding it, I apologize. But, whatever. And you get to know a little bit of the characters. I mean, the characters, I would say, are not that interesting. At least based on episode 1. They don't seem that intriguing to me. And I don't know if these need to be an hour long. Maybe like the pilot, so to speak, but I would think this maybe would have an issue with pacing, because even an hour long, I'm like, okay, when's this going to get going? Okay. But what keeps it afloat is the visual aspects of it. The landscape, the camera work, the puppetry, the not using so much CG, doing much more of a practical in the spirit of Jim Henson tradition. It's just, I'm not sure if I'm 100% sold on the story of this. And again, the fact that it's a prequel. Because it's the Skeksis finding out that they used the power of the crystal, but that it's waning. Oh, but now we can steal essence. They realize that. And there's not really a sense of mystery either. It kind of tells you everything that's going to happen in a way where, like, from the first episode, one of them realizes that the Skeksis are killing, and people do die. I'll give credit for that. They don't skimp on that. They do go for it. Like, the spoiler alert, spoilers, the Taron Egerton's girlfriend, she does get caught and she does die, get her essence, and then she just disintegrates. So they're not afraid to kill someone off, so there's still a bit of that darkness that was in the dark. And they decide to go more in that direction. Taron Egerton sees this and runs off, and the Chamberlain's like, oh, let him go. No one's going to believe him, because they think of us as gods and they worship us. I guess, that's going to be the point, is that he's got to get people to convince him, as well as this princess that wants to learn more info, as well as this character Deet underground that gets this vision of these bad events from this tree of the Darkening, and she goes up top, and the three of them are going to join, and then they'll probably join with other clans, and then there'll be a war. But the war, we already know most of the, well, not all, but most, like, we already know the outcome. Like, we already know that the Chamberlain's going to be there, because he's there in this movie. I don't know, I don't know, man. I don't know about the prequel aspect. It's one of those that, again, I'm not 100% on the story. I wouldn't say I was really pulled in and intrigued what would happen next story-wise. The characters, I wouldn't say I really got that emotionally invested with the characters. I wouldn't say I did, to be honest. Serviceable. But it definitely is a show that its visual aspect goes a long way in enjoying it. Its visual and its world building aspects of showing bits and pieces of different creatures, different stuff here and there, that does go a long way. And I can see people enjoying on that aspect. Like I said, I don't know if I would enjoy the rest of the show as a story, but it would be enjoyable as, again, a visual treat. Not physical, visual treat. So, but man, I mean, it's only episode 1. So maybe the story would, pick up, to be fair. But on the flip side, in the back of my crawl, it's like, well, I kind of know the end game of this, so there's not a whole lot of suspense for me. Again, that's like I'm repeating. That's one of my issues for prequels is that I would have preferred if this was just a sequel. This again, like 1,000 years after this, and then it wouldn't be the Skeksis, it'd be something else. And then you could see what would happen. Uh, like you could go in a variety of directions. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's like kind of retconning stuff in this, but it's not. But again, based on this, it was, unless we're told that what we were told here was a lie. But it was like the crystal cracked, and then the Skeksis was born. But the Skeksis are already here, but the crystal isn't cracked. Again, maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Maybe I'm missing something. If so, mea culpa, I apologize. Also, I thought the music in this was better. Maybe the music gets better in the rest of the show. Like, when the title, The Dark Crystal, came up, I'm like, oh, okay. But the rest of the score, I thought Trevor Jones did a better job on the score than the score here. Maybe it's, again, that's another aspect that gets better. Overall, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it on a visual palette. They definitely spent some money and budget on it. It did not look cheap in the slightest. Like I said, the landscapes, the swirling camera work, the puppetry. In the puppetry, the faces of Gelflings, they were like that in the original, but there's been like no improvements to make their face a little bit more like emotional or expressive. So it was like more interesting to see the puppetry of the other creatures or the Skeksis more. Does was that's a little bit what I thought of the original movie anyway. But I like that it still kept this darkness to it. There are people that could die, so there's a bit of seriousness to it. And it was great to look at puppetry wise and visual wise, so at least it was entertaining on that aspect. Just I'm not 100% sold on the narrative. So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.